Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that every man who has ever faced heartbreak needs to hear. Losing her was not the end of your story. In fact, it might just be the beginning of the greatest transformation of your life. Too many men let rejection define them, let heartbreak destroy them, and let someone else's decision determine their worth. But today, I want to challenge you to rise higher. This is not about begging her to come back. This is not about proving your value through desperate words or empty gestures. No, this is about becoming such a powerful, disciplined, confident version of yourself that her leaving you becomes the biggest mistake she ever made. This is about becoming the man she regrets losing. Understand this. Regret doesn't come because you begged her for another chance. Regret doesn't come because you tried to convince her to stay. Regret comes when you level up in every area of your life so profoundly that she can't help but look back and say, "I let go of that." And the beauty of this transformation is that it's not about her, it's about you. It's about shifting your focus inward, mastering your emotions, building unshakable confidence, redefining your value, establishing purpose, leveling up your lifestyle, and living as if you were never broken. That's how you turn heartbreak into your greatest weapon. So today, we're not here to talk about pain. We're here to talk about power. We're here to talk about how you rise, how you rebuild, and how you reinvent yourself into the kind of man who doesn't chase validation, but commands respect. When a relationship ends, the natural tendency for many men is to stare so hard at the closed door that they forget an entire world of open doors exists behind them. The breakup feels like the end of your story, when in reality, it's simply the beginning of a new chapter. And here's the truth. The fastest way to make her regret losing you is not by calling, texting, begging, or proving yourself to her. It's by shifting the focus completely inward. You see, heartbreak creates two paths. One leads to self-destruction, the other to self-mastery. Which one you choose will determine not only whether she regrets walking away, but whether you emerge stronger than you've ever been. Shifting the focus inward means redirecting your energy. Instead of replaying conversations in your head or stalking her online to see what she's doing, you pour that time into you. You stop asking, "Why did she leave me?" and start asking, "What kind of man do I want to become now?" That single shift in perspective transforms you from a victim of circumstance into the architect of your own destiny. Think about it. If your worth was wrapped up in her attention, her validation, or her presence, then losing her will feel like losing yourself. But if you anchor your identity in your own growth, your own values, and your own standards, you become unshakable. You stop depending on someone else to define your happiness. And here's what's powerful when you shift inward. You start to notice areas of your life that you've neglected. Maybe you've allowed your fitness to slide. Maybe you've been stuck in a dead-end routine. Maybe you've lost sight of your passions, your ambitions, your purpose. Breakups have a way of exposing those blind spots, not to punish you, but to push you. That pain you feel, it's an invitation to grow. So instead of drowning in regret, use that fire to reinvent yourself. Get back into the gym, not because you want to post pictures for her to see, but because you respect your body enough to take care of it. Pick up books, learn skills, pursue opportunities that challenge you mentally and professionally. Reconnect with your vision, the version of yourself you once dreamed of becoming before you got comfortable. That man is still waiting to be unleashed. And here's the irony. When you truly stop chasing her, when you stop making her the center of your thoughts, that's when you start to shine in ways she never imagined. Because nothing is more attractive, nothing makes a woman regret walking away more than a man who is so focused on himself, so invested in his growth, that he radiates purpose and strength. Without even trying, the focus inward creates a shift in energy. You move from desperation to independence, from neediness to power. And people feel it. Your friends will notice it, your colleagues will notice it, and yes, she will notice it too. But by that time, you won't even care, because you'll be too busy becoming the man you always should have been. So remember this, the regret doesn't come because you begged for her back. The regret doesn't come because you convinced her to stay. The regret comes when you level up so profoundly that she can't help but think, I walked away from that. That is the power of shifting the focus inward. One of the biggest traps men fall into after a breakup is emotional chaos. You're hurt, angry, confused, maybe even humiliated. And because the emotions are so intense, you feel this urge to act on them, to send that late night text, to call 100 times, to show up at her place demanding answers. But here's the truth. Every time you lose control of your emotions, you hand away your power. Women don't regret losing the man who falls apart without them. They regret losing the man who can stand tall even when his world feels like it's collapsing. That's why mastering emotional discipline is non-negotiable if you want to become the man she regrets losing. Emotional discipline doesn't mean you don't feel the pain. It means you don't let the pain dictate your actions. You don't allow temporary feelings to create permanent mistakes. Think about it. One desperate message can destroy weeks of silence and self-respect. One angry outburst can turn her doubts about leaving you into total confirmation that she made the right choice. Self-control, on the other hand, creates mystery, respect, and curiosity. When you learn to master your emotions, you send a silent message. I am not broken by your absence. I am bigger than this moment. I know my worth. That message speaks louder than anything you could ever say with words. So how do you develop emotional discipline? First, create space between your feelings and your reactions. You may feel like calling her, but instead of acting on impulse, pause. Ask yourself, does this action align with the man I'm becoming, or does it keep me stuck in the man I used to be? 9 times out of 10, the answer will be clear. Second, channel your emotions into productivity. Anger, use it as fuel in the gym. Sadness, pour it into journaling, music, or creative work. Confusion, turn it into curiosity and start learning new things. When you transform emotional energy into constructive energy, you not only heal faster, but you also grow stronger. Third, surround yourself with accountability. Don't isolate yourself with your thoughts. That's when bad decisions are born. Find friends, mentors, or communities that remind you of your value and hold you to a higher standard. When you have people who refuse to let you spiral, your discipline sharpens. And finally, practice detachment. This doesn't mean being cold or unfeeling. It means recognizing that your peace of mind cannot be held hostage by someone else's choices. You let go of the need to control her, convince her, or keep her. That freedom gives you back your power. Understand this. Emotional discipline is rare. Most men crumble when they're rejected, and that's why they become forgettable. But the man who remains composed, the man who doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, doesn't chase, that's the man who lingers in her mind. Because self-control communicates something deeper than charm, looks, or money. It communicates strength. And strength is unforgettable. When you master emotional discipline, you become the man who can walk away with his dignity intact, who can keep his silence even when every fiber of his being wants to speak, who can carry himself with composure while others fall apart. That kind of man doesn't just survive heartbreak, he becomes magnetic. He becomes the standard she compares every other man to. So remember, emotions are natural, but discipline is a choice. The man who controls himself controls the outcome, and the man who controls the outcome, that's the man she will always regret losing. Confidence is not something you wear like a new shirt. It's not about walking into a room and puffing your chest just to look important. Real confidence is internal. It's a quiet, unshakable belief in who you are and what you bring to the table, regardless of who stays or who leaves. Many men lose their confidence after a breakup because they allowed their sense of worth to be built on her validation. When she said, "I love you," they felt valuable. When she gave attention, they felt significant. And when she walked away, it felt like their value disappeared with her. But here's the truth. If your confidence depends on someone else, it was never confidence, it was dependency. Unshakable confidence begins when you decide, "I am enough, with or without her approval." It's rooted in self-awareness. You know your strengths, your talents, your abilities, and you're not afraid to acknowledge them. You also know your flaws and weaknesses, but instead of hiding them, you embrace them as areas of growth. That balance creates authenticity, and authenticity is magnetic. Let's be real. Confidence is the most attractive quality a man can have. Not looks, not money, not possessions. Those things help, yes, but confidence amplifies everything. A confident man can be average looking and still turn heads. He can have little to his name and still command respect. Why? Because people are drawn to certainty. They're drawn to someone who walks like he knows where he's going, who speaks like he believes in what he's saying, who lives as if he doesn't need external validation to feel secure. Think about the difference between arrogance and confidence. Arrogance screams, "Look at me, I'm better than you." Confidence whispers, "I know who I am, and I'm not afraid to stand in that truth." Arrogance pushes people away. Confidence pulls them in. And when you're building yourself into the man she regrets losing, you need to cultivate that quiet, unshakable energy. So how do you build it? First, keep promises to yourself. Every time you set a goal and follow through, whether it's waking up earlier, hitting the gym, saving money, or completing a project, you reinforce self-trust. Confidence comes from evidence, and the best evidence is your own consistency. Second, expose yourself to challenges. Growth doesn't come from staying safe, it comes from stepping into discomfort. Whether it's learning a new skill, starting a side hustle, or facing fears, every small victory adds to your belief in yourself. When you overcome one obstacle, you start to believe you can overcome the next. Third, control your self-talk. Stop calling yourself weak, unlucky, or not good enough. Words are powerful. If you constantly feed yourself negativity, your confidence will starve. Instead, affirm your progress, your strengths, and your potential. Rewire your inner dialogue to match the man you're becoming, not the pain you're leaving behind. And finally, protect your environment. Surround yourself with people who respect and uplift you. Confidence wilts in toxic soil. If you're around constant criticism, drama, or doubt, it's hard to grow. But in an environment of encouragement and accountability, your confidence multiplies. Now here's the irony. When you build unshakable confidence, you stop caring about whether she regrets losing you. You're too busy living your life, pursuing your goals, and standing in your truth. And that very energy, that independence, that certainty, that self-belief is what makes her look back and say, "I didn't realize what I had." Confidence is freedom. It frees you from needing validation, it frees you from comparison, it frees you from fear, and once you've built that kind of confidence, no breakup, no rejection, no loss can take it away. That's the man who is unforgettable. That's the man she regrets losing. Here's the hard truth. Many men only realize their true value after someone walks away. They look in the mirror and suddenly see all the ways they've been coasting, physically, mentally, financially, socially, even spiritually. They recognize that somewhere along the line they settled. They stopped demanding more of themselves. They stopped evolving, and when a woman senses that a man has lost his edge, his drive, his hunger, the attraction fades. Redefining your value means deciding that your worth is not stagnant. It's not locked to who you were in the past or limited by the mistakes you've made. It means choosing to become a man who is constantly improving, constantly growing, constantly setting a higher standard for himself. When you raise your own bar, the world, and yes, even she, can't help but notice. Let's break it down. Physical value. Your body is your first presentation to the world. You don't need to look like a model, but you do need to respect yourself enough to take care of your health. Fitness is not just about muscles, it's about discipline, energy, and vitality. When you prioritize your health, you show that you value yourself. And nothing communicates value louder than a man who invests in his own well-being, mental value. A man who never sharpens his mind becomes dull. Redefining your value means feeding your mind with knowledge, with new skills, with perspective. Read, study, explore. Be the man who can contribute to conversations beyond small talk. A sharp mind is attractive because it signals growth, curiosity, and leadership. Financial value. Money isn't everything, but financial stability changes everything. It doesn't mean chasing wealth to impress her. It means building independence, security, and freedom for yourself. When you handle your finances with discipline and vision, you step into a kind of power that few things can match. You become a provider not just for others, but for yourself, and that makes you magnetic social value. Who you surround yourself with shapes your identity. If your circle is weak, you'll eventually mirror that weakness. But if your circle is ambitious, disciplined, and inspiring, you'll naturally rise to that level. Redefining your value means choosing relationships that sharpen you, not drain you. It means being a man who adds value to his community, his friends, his family, spiritual value. At the deepest level, you need an anchor. Something bigger than yourself. For some, it's faith. For others, it's principles, values, or a philosophy of life. Whatever it is, it gives you direction and resilience when life gets heavy. A man with no spiritual grounding drifts. A man with spiritual value stands firm. Here's the point. When you redefine your value, you stop asking, "How do I get her back?" and start asking, "How do I get myself back?" You stop chasing approval and start demanding excellence from yourself. And the higher you elevate, the more undeniable you become. Women regret losing men who grow. They regret losing men who don't stay broken, men who refuse to remain the same. Because nothing stings more than realizing the man you left has transformed into the version you always wanted, but now can't have. So don't just improve, reinvent. Upgrade your body, sharpen your mind, elevate your finances, strengthen your circle. Ground your spirit, redefine what it means to be you. That's how you shift from being the man she left to the man she never should have walked away from. One of the most powerful forces in a man's life is his sense of purpose. Purpose gives direction. Purpose gives meaning. Purpose transforms a man from simply existing into truly living. And here's the truth. Nothing makes a woman regret losing a man more than watching him lock into his mission and chase it with relentless drive. A man without purpose is like a ship without a compass. He drifts wherever the waves take him, into distractions, into unhealthy habits, into relationships that don't serve him. He clings to people for validation because he has no anchor within himself. That kind of man is easy to leave behind because he isn't moving forward anyway. But the man who knows where he's going, the man who wakes up with fire in his chest and refuses to settle for mediocrity, that's a man who becomes unforgettable. Establishing purpose means identifying what matters most to you beyond relationships, beyond temporary emotions, beyond comfort. It's asking yourself, what legacy do I want to leave? What contribution do I want to make? What kind of man do I want to become in the next 5, 10, 20 years? The answers to those questions give you a map, and once you have a map, your drive kicks in. Drive is the fuel that pushes you forward when things get hard. Drive is what keeps you working when others are sleeping, learning when others are partying, grinding when others are wasting time. A man with drive is magnetic because he radiates focus, determination, and vision. People can sense when you're on a mission. They respect it, they admire it, and yes, she will regret losing it. Think about this. Most men spend their lives chasing women, but the men who are chased by women are the ones chasing purpose. Why? Because women are drawn to momentum. They're drawn to men who are moving somewhere, who are building, who are creating. A man with purpose doesn't have to convince anyone of his value. His life does the talking for him. Now, how do you establish purpose? Start by clarifying your goals, not vague dreams, but specific targets. Write them down, break them into steps. Define what success looks like in your career, in your health, in your personal growth. Then commit to pursuing them consistently. Next, eliminate distractions. Every minute wasted on things that don't matter is energy stolen from your purpose. Cut out the habits, the environments, and even the people who keep you stagnant. Drive requires discipline, and discipline requires focus. Third, build routines that support your mission. Successful men don't rely on motivation, they rely on systems. They create daily habits that align with their goals so that progress becomes automatic. Whether it's waking up early, studying for an hour, or training your body, your routine becomes the foundation for your drive. Finally, embrace challenges. Purpose isn't meant to be easy. The obstacles you face along the way are what sharpen your resilience and deepen your conviction. Every setback is a test of whether you really mean what you say you want. A man without drive quits at the first sign of difficulty. A man with drive uses difficulty as fuel, and here's the beauty of it. Once you establish purpose and drive, you stop needing validation from anyone. You stop asking, does she see my value? Because you're too busy living in alignment with your mission. And ironically, that's when the regret begins. Because nothing stings more than watching a man you once underestimated rise into greatness without you. Purpose is power, drive is attraction. Together, they make you unstoppable, and when you become unstoppable, you become unforgettable. That's the man she regrets losing. There's a certain kind of man who doesn't need to announce his worth. His lifestyle speaks for him. The way he carries himself, the way he organizes his life, the standards he enforces, all communicate one powerful truth. I am a man of value. And nothing makes a woman regret losing you more than watching you elevate your lifestyle and enforce boundaries she never thought you were capable of. Let's start with lifestyle. Lifestyle isn't about flashing wealth or showing off possessions. It's about creating a life that reflects discipline, independence, and vision. It's about crafting an environment that pushes you forward, not one that keeps you stagnant. When your lifestyle levels up, people notice. When you live with intention, when your routines are sharp, when your space, your health, your appearance, and your habits are aligned with success, you don't need to tell anyone you've grown. They can see it. A leveled-up lifestyle looks like waking up early with purpose instead of sleeping until noon with no direction. It looks like having a clean, organized space that reflects clarity instead of chaos. It looks like investing in experiences that enrich you, travel, education, personal growth, rather than wasting resources on meaningless distractions. It looks like dressing well, not to impress others, but because you respect yourself enough to present yourself with excellence. And here's the key: your lifestyle becomes a mirror of your inner growth. The more you build structure, discipline, and vision into your daily life, the more magnetic you become. People, including her, will notice the transformation, but lifestyle alone isn't enough. You also need boundaries. Because the truth is, you can't level up if you're letting everyone walk over you. Boundaries are the lines you draw to protect your energy, your time, and your respect. And when you finally establish them, you stop being the man who tolerates everything, and you become the man who commands respect without saying a word. Boundaries look like saying no when something doesn't align with your goals. They look like refusing to entertain drama, toxic people, or meaningless arguments. They look like walking away from situations where your peace is threatened. Boundaries show the world that you know your value and will not compromise it for anyone. And here's where it gets powerful. Boundaries are deeply attractive because they signal strength, they signal self-respect, they signal independence. A man without boundaries is easy to manipulate, easy to drain, easy to forget. But a man with boundaries, he's remembered, respected, and desired. When you combine a leveled-up lifestyle with strong boundaries, you become a man who operates on a higher frequency. You're no longer the man begging for attention or validation. You're not the man she left behind, drowning in old habits and broken self-worth. You're the man who has evolved, the man who built a life so rich in purpose, so full of discipline and strength, that anyone who doubted you can't help but regret it. And here's the irony: the moment you set those boundaries and elevate your lifestyle, you stop chasing her completely. You stop needing her to validate your progress because your life itself validates you. And that's when she looks back and realizes, I had him, but I didn't respect him. I left, but he didn't break. I thought he needed me, but he never did. So ask yourself today, does my lifestyle reflect the man I want to become? Do my boundaries protect the value I bring? If the answer is no, then it's time to rise. Because when you level up your lifestyle and enforce your boundaries, you don't just become harder to lose, you become impossible to forget. There comes a point in every man's healing journey where he must make a decision. Will I carry the scars of the past as chains, or will I wear them as armor? Because here's the truth: pain is inevitable, but remaining broken is a choice. And nothing creates more regret in the heart of someone who left you than seeing you live as if you were never broken. When a woman walks away, she often expects you to crumble. She expects you to spiral into self-doubt, to lose focus, to drown in grief. Why? Because that's what most men do. They collapse under the weight of rejection, and in doing so, they prove her decision right. But the man who refuses to stay broken, the man who stands tall, smiles again, and keeps moving forward, that man becomes unforgettable. Living as if you were never broken doesn't mean denying your pain. It doesn't mean pretending the heartbreak never happened. It means processing it, healing from it, and then refusing to let it define you. You acknowledge the wound, but you don't keep reopening it. You accept the lesson, but you don't keep repeating the story. Instead, you walk as though the break made you stronger, sharper, and more focused than before. Think about it. What's more powerful than a man who refuses to be defeated? A man who can take betrayal, disappointment, or rejection and still rise. That resilience is magnetic. That strength is attractive, because it shows that your happiness was never dependent on someone else's decision to stay or go. So how do you live as if you were never broken? First, you rebuild your identity around growth, not grief. You stop saying, "She hurt me, she left me, she broke me," and you start saying, "That experience shaped me, it built me, it refined me." Words matter. The way you describe your story creates the reality you live in. Speak from a place of power, not pain. Second, you create joy for yourself. Don't sit around waiting for someone else to bring light into your life. Travel, explore, pursue hobbies, spend time with people who uplift you, rediscover the things that make you come alive. A man who lives fully, who laughs freely, who radiates energy, communicates without words. I am unbroken. Third, you refuse to chase closure. Closure isn't given, it's created. You don't need her to explain why she left, why she changed, why she didn't choose you. You decide that her silence is enough. Her absence is enough. Your healing does not depend on her explanation. That decision alone frees you from the invisible chains that keep so many men stuck. And finally, you live forward. Too many men keep staring backward, replaying what went wrong, analyzing every detail. But the man who lives as if he was never broken is focused ahead. His eyes are on the future, on the opportunities, on the man he is becoming. The past is a lesson, not a prison. And here's where the regret strikes hardest. When she sees you smiling again, when she sees you thriving, when she sees you moving forward with unshakable confidence, she will realize she no longer has access to you because you didn't just heal, you leveled up. You didn't just recover, you reinvented. And you did it so completely that it looks as though you were never broken at all. That is the power you carry. That is the man she regrets losing. And so, I want you to picture this for a moment, the man you are becoming. Not the man who begged, not the man who cried at midnight wondering why she left, not the man who clung to the past because he thought he couldn't survive without her. No, I want you to picture the man who rose out of the ashes, the man who used rejection as fuel, heartbreak as a teacher, and pain as a blueprint for power. This man doesn't chase, he doesn't wait by the phone, he doesn't look backward for validation. He looks forward, eyes locked on the future he is building, shoulders squared, heart strong, and spirit unshaken. This man is magnetic not because he tries to be, but because he is. His energy speaks before he opens his mouth. His presence commands respect before he even introduces himself. And here's the beauty of it. Once you step into that man, you stop worrying about whether she regrets losing you, because you're too busy living a life she can no longer reach. You're too busy rising into the kind of greatness that cannot be ignored. And that's when regret becomes inevitable. Not because you chased it, not because you demanded it, but because your growth, your power, your reinvention forced it. The truth is, you were never meant to stay broken. You were never meant to stay stuck in that chapter. Heartbreak was not your ending, it was your awakening. It was the moment life tested you, asking, will you collapse? Or will you evolve? So let the world see your evolution. Let her see it. Let everyone who doubted you see it. Not through words, not through desperate actions, but through the man you have become. A man of focus, a man of discipline, a man of vision, a man who, when people look at him, radiates one clear message: I was never destroyed. I was only refined. That is the man who is unforgettable. That is the man who leaves her with no choice but to regret ever letting him go.